All right. Hi there. This is Sasha Stone. I'm here with Uwe Boll, who has a new movie coming out with Armie Hammer. And the first in how long has it been since you put out a film?
4.5 years. So,
4.5 years.
yeah,
And this is called
Citizen Vigilante. So,
Citizen Vigilante. And
yeah,
I've actually watched it. I watched it. It's very stirring. It's very provocative. It has already been banned in Germany.
yeah, it goes fast. Eh? So, if you bring a, a subject matter in, what I did with the mass rape, the migration, saying what happens in Europe over and over, then you're already like, oh no, that's not allowed. You need to, or they try at least that the movie is not getting shown. So that's unbelievable, And I mean, I follow you a longer time, and I read everything from On the Road with the Dogs. I have two dogs too, and stuff like this. And also, like, I think we both political started more on the left side, and um, the last 10, 15 years in a way, not maybe 10 years or a little more as 10 years, uh, shifted, I think, both of us a little. And that I felt a connection when I was reading, also like about various subject matters, of course, what you wrote. Um, and I felt also as a filmmaker, I'm going with the subject by subject by subject, and not like what a political direction it goes. I made a movie about
Yeah.
Darfur, where actually in Darfur was a real genocide going on, but nobody did anything about it. Maybe not enough money in the game, and I didn't care who is in charge of a government. I think if 500,000 people are getting hacked into pieces, it's time to interfere, to intervene. And that's the reason I'm not so a big fan of when they say
Oops, I
Ukraine
got
is a
you frozen,
genocide.
honey.
Gaza is a genocide. Everything is a genocide now. When 10 people die, it's already a genocide in the media. So,
Yeah, I that froze a little bit for half of that. So you want to
okay.
say that again? I'm sorry. So because I'll edit
Okay.
that out.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, no, I said like when I do movies, I don't care about the political direction. I care about the subject matter, and then I tell the story. And I wrote to the rating system in Germany when it came to Citizen Vigilante, like, okay, if I would have five neo Nazis raping a migrant girl, you would allow that movie. You would maybe even promote that movie. But
Absolutely.
unfortunately, that's not happening. It's not like, I cannot, as a filmmaker, ignore facts and criminal statistics and whatever. And we had, I, I wrote down the numbers extra also for our interview, from rapes. And in the year 2000, we had in Germany 8,133 rapes, and now we have 39,029.
Oh my
That's
goodness.
like it's four times higher. In France, it went from 7,500 to 42,400. And in Poland, where almost no migration happened, it's stable on 2000, like it's around 2000. So to say migration has nothing to do with knife stabbings or mass rapes, um, it's insane. It's
Yeah, no,
basically insane.
I hear that. So let me just inform people about what this movie is.
Yeah.
It's a very tightly wound, ice cold thriller, I would call it, with Armie Hammer as a guy who has had enough, right? He's like Michael Douglas, I think, in Falling Down a bit. He's absolutely, in my opinion, Dirty Harry in the first Dirty Harry movie,
Yeah.
which, by the way, was very controversial then and controversial now, right? Dirty Harry, the first
Yeah.
famous scene where he's pinning a guy. And the reason it's controversial is because the bad guy is black. That's why. It wouldn't be controversial otherwise. And so it's just your film is so exciting to watch because I feel like it's been a long time since I've seen anything that visceral. I haven't actually. I can't even in the last what 20 years, everything's so soft now and
Yes.
everybody's feelings have to be protected and everything's offensive and every little thing people pearl clutch over. I grew up at a time when audiences were trusted to be adults and to go into something like remember Blue Velvet hit in 1985, for
Yeah.
instance. It was like Top Gun was the number one movie, and here comes Blue Velvet. So that was the era I grew up in. So I look forward to this. I'm not afraid of anything that might be controversial. And so, but people should be warned. It's not just immigrants he's killing criminals. And there's
Yes.
a great the scene on the bus with the three young kids is probably my favorite scene in the whole movie. That's just fabulous. Armie Hammer is so good in the part.
And it had, by the way,
But
the scene in the bus happened in my life. Like, but I was then Armie Hammer without being Armie Hammer, but where a whole bus didn't move because kids didn't want to pay and the driver refused to drive. And then I gave him the money,
oh
but it
wow.
didn't have an afterplay. But I said to them, like, just basically a little from the dialogue, what he says in the movie, like, if nobody would pay, there is no uh, community,
Yeah.
right? If
So
everybody goes and like in San Francisco, when they rob the stores and they don't get punished for it, okay, if everybody would do this, it's the end. There will be
mm,
not one store left, and the people need to get that. You have a responsibility. So,
yeah.
yeah.
And then he is trying to just sort of push past the bullshit in everything that he does. Every single scene is, get it done or else, right? Because, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of tap dancing around. I'm sick of the bureaucracy. I'm certainly sick of political correctness, making it so that we can't even have a conversation about a gang rape, for instance.
Yeah.
Um, that is I think groundbreaking in art, honestly. And I know that you're going to get a lot of shit for it. And I know that people are going to, say you're a racist or whatever over it. Because I know how they are. I know why movies like this don't get made ever, right?
Mhm.
Um, so that's going to be its own controversy for sure. But the thing is I think art has a way of opening a door, and a door that's been closed a long time. And you have all these people worried about mass migration.
Yes.
They're worried about it. They're worried about people getting beheaded on the streets. They're worried about geese being taken and eaten from parks. They're worried about adolescent girls being groped in markets. And they're not allowed to say a word. They're not allowed to say a word because it's deemed racist. Like, for instance, Netflix made a TV show called Adolescence, which was
Yeah.
about
I
a
watched
young
it.
white kid knife. Right. So the knife crimes in the UK, it's so verboten to talk about that they won't even say what the race is of the people committing the knife crimes. But what's safe, the safe default is it's the nice little white kid down the street.
Yeah, totally.
And you're not allowed to say that's not what's happening in the UK, people. Maybe it's one isolated case, but there's a bigger story here.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that's what your film is doing. I'm the question, the character is very opaque. So trying to figure out what his intentions are. What does he want out of this? What is he going to get out of this? Um, where does he go? Where does it take him I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but how far does it take him to the point where he's just had enough? And does he go over the edge? And if he does go over the edge, can he be pulled back in?
I mean, with the lead actor Sanders, like Armie Hammer, I felt what I don't want is just a personal revenge story. Like where a guy that you have tons of movies where
Yeah,
wife
John
gets
Wick.
killed,
Mm.
now tries to get the murderer. So I felt I want to do a little more political movie that to show him more as a character. He has that military background. He could do it, and he's used to work for the military. His father, in a way, did nothing with him really, besides giving him a lot of money when he died, and that's the reason he's stranded in that city where he owns so much real estate. He's not necessarily only like he's not for me. He's not like a total clean guy. not a, like he has darkness around him. And I felt also when Armie said he would do it, I felt it's better almost to do not a clean cut character, to have this kind of when he goes to the brothel and stuff like this, so to not show him like he's the white knight here. So, but on the other hand, he's doing good things. He helps that girls in the club who get roofied. We had that even in my neighborhood here. What happened? That's now modern. I don't know where that came from. That now guys thinks it's cool to roofie a girl and then rape her basically or sleep with them. That's like on vogue now. So there are more things in it, and then it escalates up to this that he goes after the judges also of this mass rape. And I remember when I started writing it, it was in Hamburg in Germany was a case like this where nobody went to jail. They're all raped like a 15 years old girl, like how it is in the movie. And the judge said the perpetrators are victims of the society, like in his reasoning why he was not sending them to jail. That's a real case. And when I
Yeah.
watched this in TV, I got so mad that I started writing the script. Because I felt like, okay, that cuts it now. That's insane. That's that because there's the one thing you say that people are scared. They want to be so politically correct, and so they don't want to say anything or it could damage me. But there's another thing where I feel that's the worst. Like you have now a judge who is so brainwashed that he completely lost track of the law. I don't think that has anything to do with the law anymore to not send gang rapers or knife stabbers long time into prison. And they also never thought about the girl who's still now living in the same neighborhood as all the rapists who are basically free. So that made me so mad, and when that rating thing came in from Germany, I sold Germany, so there was a distributor attached. They sent it to the rating, and then it came back, oh, it's not getting to the rating. They flipped out. So we did it like an attorney wrote a whole letter in my case to the rating system. So we got it a second opinion, and they still didn't give it a rating. And with the thing, oh, we have to protect the use. We have to protect the use. But okay, if you give a movie a rating like a R rating or whatever, you protect the use because they're not allowed to watch it. I mean, they still all watch it, but it doesn't matter. So it's so absurd. I was so mad that that was a poor political decision. And for me, freedom means you cannot intervene with somebody's writing or talking, or if somebody makes a movie. That's ridiculous. And in the German constitution, it's written like art is free, freedom of speech, boop, 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 boop. But then comes the little paragraph under it, but only if it doesn't incite violence or it's racist and right. And when you have these exceptions, then of course the door is open for any state attorney, for anybody to say, look, that's not allowed. So there, the constitution in the US is way better because there is no exception. So that's way better. But I think Germany, based on the Second World War, they still thought they have to make a constitution so they could shut off Adolf Hitler Part 2 or something, that they go against this, but they were not aware that this now turned into the hands of left-wing woke governments all over Europe, in England also, and that they do basically kind of a left fascism almost.
It's fascism. They don't realize it because they don't really understand what fascism means.
Yeah.
But for instance, I was reading and listening to a podcast on Hitler, and Hitler had two college kids beheaded for putting up flyers that were criticize the government. Well, we just watched in Iran, they slaughtered 40,000, 30,000 protesters just for protesting. It's like the Islamic ideology is what Hitler's ideology she was, almost exactly. And they're importing this into Europe right now at alarming levels without realizing that the mandate is also that that they are allowed to obey their laws and live their way, which includes all the things that are being imported as well, groping women, because their country, their culture is such that they have a permission structure for that kind of thing, stoning women, beheading men, and so to me, it's a recipe for disaster. In their attempt to be good people, they're actually importing the very thing they're trying to prevent, and they cannot speak of it. What I think your movie challenges, it certainly challenges with me because I think about this all the time, is that there was a poll done a couple of years ago that showed that conservatives don't talk down to Black people when they lecture them or speak to them, but liberals do. Liberals dumb down their language to speak to them. So they're secretly thinking they're not smart enough to understand. So I'm going to dumb it down. And I see that across the board. I see conservatives seeing people more equal, regardless of their skin color, their culture,
Mhm.
and liberals not. Liberals see it very hierarchical. They're below, so we have to lift them up. So if your film shows a guy, murdering or enacting his own brand of justice on someone who's not white, for instance, that's automatically deemed racist because
Yeah.
they're not seen as equal to white people on screen. And I think that has hindered storytelling in Hollywood probably more than anything else because nothing is really truthful. Everything is
Yeah.
performative. Everything is how can we keep, perpetuating this power hierarchy that we've decided is fair, makes things fair. Sure, movie doesn't do that, and I think that how a person interfaces with it is going to depend on that worldview of how they see
Yeah.
equality among us.
No, I
Yeah.
think you totally, in a way, nailed it in regards also in general how people see people, right? I would make the same movie with white rapists getting killed by
Yeah,
them if this
right.
would be happening all the time, right? And you would never had any migrant raping anybody, then we could do the same scene, but it's a whatever Irish family who are out of their mind doing like stuff like this. But unfortunately, that's not the case, and that's the reason I cannot, as a filmmaker, sell myself out and make other people the villains only because it's political correct.
Yeah, it
And
distorts reality.
yes, it started with all this diversity writers, with all this kind of uh, every movie, every TV show has to have transgender people. They have, like all this stuff. It's like slowly it all moved into the system, and then it's a must. Otherwise, you don't even have to um, send a script anywhere. If you don't think about it, developing something, there will be no response. They will just not do it. And when I will not forget, I put a movie. I wanted to put a movie into Sundance. So when you fill out the questionnaire at the Sundance Film Festival, when you're white, male, heterosexual, you're dead. Like
No, I know.
yeah, really, it's like you're almost like you fill it out, and during you fill all this stuff out, how many natives, indigenous people work, and all that stuff,
Mhm.
you feel like I'm so toast. That movie can be as good as whatever Citizen Kane. They will not play it because from the 25 questions, uh, if you don't like get 15 points, 16 points, you're dead. And
No. Yeah.
but that slowly moved it to this direction, and then people were scared to talk about it, and that's what in Europe happens, for example, with all these lawsuits for insulting politicians, or in England where people go to jail because they post whatever, that
Yeah.
guy's an asshole, so they're getting in jail for this. So that's an intimidation strategy to shut people up. So, and it happens in Europe, in Germany. The EU tries to do this. That Digital Service Act, what they try in the EU is nothing else as a censorship. They say, oh, we have to protect the kids, but no, they just want to spy on everybody's social media and then go after you. If they think
Yeah.
you're like like you vote for the AfD in Germany or something, then you already like they want to kill you. You know, they want to get rid of you. So, and I felt as a filmmaker, I think it's too easy to swim with the stream. I always liked it to go then that other direction, you know, to go against the stream and say, look, that's all bullshit. Here you get it in the movie. And I hope a lot of people will watch it also, of course, in the US next on the June 19 when it starts, but also that it gets legs. You know, that's not a movie like the Steven Spielberg movie, what comes out with $80 million advertising. So, but I think the movie is so single out there, as you said, a movie like this you didn't watch a long time, that I hope it gets like people talk about it and say, look, you should watch that film that threw me off or out of my balance or something, and it brings some heavy but good points out. Um,
Well, let me tell you
yeah,
this. Prepare yourself. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been at the heart of a cancel culture swarm or bullied on the internet, but I have many
I know.
times.
Yeah, yeah.
And they are. I, I heard, it's funnily enough, I heard someone describe Steven Spielberg's latest movie as a movie that begs for all of us to have empathy for one another. It's like that's the last thing they have is empathy. The not this industry, not the people who make the movies, not the people who promote the movies, not the film critics.
Yeah,
So I was happy to hear that you talked to my buddy Chris Gore because he's one of the people who is sort of fighting the good fight out there for the
yeah,
counterculture, which I think your movie's very much a part of. I was actually shocked to see it because if the conservatives have one problem, it's that they can't access or create art. I don't know why, but they don't so much do it that way. They don't make movies. They don't, and art is the most powerful of a way to start a conversation, of a way to bring up ideas, but they will go after you in a hardcore way. And what they do is they make you toxic so that anybody who sees your movie or talks about your movie or tweets about your movie is also toxic. That's the game. And that's what they'll do. They'll give you a terrible Rotten Tomatoes score. They'll try to destroy you in every way possible over this and anybody who sees the movie. I mean, they do this with like, a mild Ron Howard movie just because it had something to do with JD Vance. Like
I know
they
that
go
was
that.
unbelievable. I really liked the film. Actually, I think the film was very good, and and then how they made Ron Howard like a fascist, basically. You know, that was almost funny, and yeah, it's unbelievable.
Ah,
And,
so they're the fascists. They don't understand that fascism is, all sticks together, bound together as one. That's what it means. It's all everybody has to be of the same piece. And that's what the left is. Everybody has to be from government down to Hollywood to music to everything. And if they don't, you're punished. And that's what they do. I mean, obviously not to the degree that with Hitler and Mussolini, but it's on that, it's in that vein. Um, so yeah, that's going to happen. But I do think that what I like is that I've been predicting and thinking that there's going to be a counterculture revolution. I really have to believe that just from the patterns of history, because in the 1950s, from the 1930s to the 1950s, they had the Hays Code in place that kept everything well behaved on screen. Honestly, we could do with the Hays Code right now in a way. But what we have is the woke code, right? But it's the same kind of thing. So in the 1950s, people stopped going to movies because television was giving them what they could get at the movies. There was nothing challenging. It was all,
mm,
sort of sword and sandals epics and very safe, people sleeping in different rooms. And then along come the foreign filmmakers, like the French filmmakers, and they start showing really provocative stuff. And people start flocking to the theaters.
mm,
And there is no way for a filmmaker like you within the Hollywood system to get your movie out there except to do it the way you're doing it, which is from the outside as an independent. But if they started doing that, people would flock. And I think they're afraid of that, actually. I think they're afraid of people flocking to see these movies because they want total control of what
yeah.
people think. you know. But I do think that that's if they want to save Hollywood, that's one of the ways they can do it is just opening the doors, letting these conversations happen, letting the daring films happen, challenge your audience, make them think.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely what your movie does. But you should prepare yourself. It's gonna get
Yeah.
ugly.
No, I mean, I got like a lot of like in very early, I did that video game based movies, and then you get all the hate from the video game community because you
Yeah.
touch their game and they're flipping out and want to kill you. But this time, it's of course political. It's different. But I have a little hope. What you said, for example, with Paramount, that they don't fall into this woke culture, right? So I think Taylor Sheridan shows were a good example that you don't have to fulfill all this diversity writers and you need like whatever an Asian lesbian camera woman or you don't make a movie. So I mean, I mean this was really like absurd. And Paramount Plus bought my New York police movie First Shift, and it was very successful on Paramount Plus. So so I hope a little that maybe Statistic Vigilante goes to Paramount,
I think
like
that'd be
not for
great. Yeah.
categories, but for the streaming, that is what I, in a way, hope. And in the earlier years, you had more players in that independent world, like this
Yeah.
kind of Myra Mix and then Fox Searchlight. They're all like kind of like dissolving slowly, all this kind of medium
Oh,
size,
I know.
you know, and the MGM got swallowed by Amazon. So that's bad because you have a harder time finding a real distributor
Yeah.
in today's time. And they're all like this kind of self-fulfilling prophecies, and they don't want to go that risk. And when I discuss with people, I always say, look, you remember a time where like Apocalypse Now was shot at the same year
Yeah.
that like the Goodfellas or the Godfather and stuff like this, and Shining and French Connection, and the 80s and 90s. There was, as you said, I think the foreign influence came, like Truffaut, Godard, all this stuff from Italian, and but then US changed based on
Yeah.
this. It went away from like this kind of the Waltons to the new Hollywood, with Scorsese and all these people came up, and all that people now would never had a career right now. Nobody,
Yeah.
like Oliver Stone, like all these people would not made any movie in today's time the way they were thinking, the way they were shooting movies. They would be so dead. And that's a scandal.
It's a
It's a
scandal.
scandal.
Taxi Driver could never be made today. I mean,
No.
people give Taxi Driver respect because Scorsese's played the game. He made his woke movie. He made Killers of the Flower Moon. And so he's in the club. He's okay. He's been accepted into their church. But Taxi Driver is a pretty wild film, if you think about it. And that none of that would ever get passed today. None of that. None of it. None of what he's doing. He's an anti-hero, which Armie Hammer kind of is too. You know, he's an
Yeah.
anti-hero. He's caught up in circumstances beyond his control until he decides to make it his control. And that's kind of what Travis Bickle does in Taxi Driver in a way. He's trying to clean up the streets. uh,
Yeah.
uh,
And
and
he was a veteran, right? So nobody took care of him, of mental health or whatever,
yeah.
So, and that was also, I think, important in the film. But today, because of Judy Foster, that she was a minor doing a prostitute, basically, that would be a
Oh
no-go.
yeah, forget it.
Would
No.
never happen. And all this, if you think early, like David Lynch, David Cronenberg, John Carpenter, all these people were political, totally incorrect, and they basically gave a shit about normal storytelling. They were thinking, no, I make the movies I want to do, and I still think like Escape from New York was Kurt Russell's one of is in my top 10 of all times, and because it had that political weight to it.
Mm.
We're not far away now from Manhattan will be a jail. So it's like we're not. It could happen in the future, and yeah, that's film wise. I think I grew up in that time period, and I loved going to the movies. There was so many different styles and characters and movies to watch. And
I know.
now it's basically I barely go to the movies. It's like not dragging me to go and watch something where I feel like I really need to go there and watch that film now. Mostly I have the feeling I can watch that in 3 months on the street.
Or if even that, like I can't, I find, because I work in the awards industry, they send me all the screeners. I don't want to watch this. I'm like, life's too short. I don't want to waste my time because I know within 5 minutes if this movie is adhering to the rules or if it isn't. And almost every single one, 99% of them, are
Yeah.
adhering to the strict rules of the woke-topia. And it's so boring. Like you already know the story. You already know the woman of color is going to be the hero. The white guy is going to be the bad guy. You know how the story is going to end. You know what it has to say. It's just like in the 1950s. So we are in an era where people are craving something to jettison. But I also feel like everybody is under surveillance, like you, for instance. Nobody would look at you and say, well, he made this movie in the past. He doesn't think that. He thinks this. Because you make this movie and it is controversial, they will automatically assume all of these things about you because they think they can get inside your head. And
Yeah.
so once you're tagged as one of the bad people, then you can't be in work in film or like me, you can't be, they can't advertise on your site, whatever it is, you're deemed a bad thing. It's like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Speaking of great movies that they would never make today.
Donald Sutherland. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a
Yeah.
good one. But that's sort of how I feel about it. Like I think that people are trying to decide who's good and who's bad. And if you're bad, you got to stand over here. And if you're good, you get to stand over here. And every piece of art has to back up that idea. Every filmmaker, Steven Spielberg, even Martin Scorsese, they're so worried about being tagged as a bad guy, that their whole career will be ruined overnight by that they make this crap, just to
Totally.
please the mob.
Yeah, no, Killers of the Flower Moon was horrific. And The Irishman was already, I'm a big mafia film fan, and I'm a big Scorsese fan. So The Irishman, I really wanted to like it, and it was like okay, but maximum okay, but lost all the edge to whatever Casino, Goodfellas, and all that stuff. And but Flowers of the Killer Moon was, I think, a total disaster. And all this old like Ridley Scott. I mean, Ridley Scott did always only entertaining movies. He never had a political agenda. But like Napoleon, whatever, that was just total shit. It was super boring. Nothing happened. And that's also a thing that you're totally right. They all want to be on the right side, what they think is the right side. And then a lot of times they're totally overdoing it, and that makes them laughable. Like, where people think, oh my God, this guy wants so urgently the Oscar, whatever, whatever. Pedro Pascal is a good actor, but he really doesn't have to run around the whole time like Free Palestine and blah, 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 blah.
Mm.
It's really not necessary to overdo it,
Yeah.
and then you have like people like Mark Ruffalo, for example. He's a good actor too, but the shit he has in his brain about like Gaza and stuff is
Uh,
is insane. It's really like completely insane. Like, but if I would shoot a movie with him, I know I couldn't do it. I would have to grab him for a dinner and talk with him for 3 hours and talk some brain into him, because they're so tainted, so over the top. And I followed all the stuff you wrote about Trump. And I think, in a way, you basically, similar to me, in the beginning, like when Trump was just the apprentice, whatever, the showman and the gigolo and whatever it was, and not really a super super successful businessman in New York. So I didn't care about Donald Trump. I didn't really felt like he is an important figure. And but then during the campaign against Hillary Clinton, I recognized, and that is what I don't get, how people don't have that. Hillary Clinton and then later Kamala Harris are so fake, so completely not natural, all calculated, ice cold, like almost non-humans. And they would do everything to just claw the power. And they have no, it's just horrible human beings. And how could the Democrats think they win? Like, how could they, like, and that shows to me that a lot of people have no judgment. They just don't feel it, even if it's right in front of them. When the Democrats said they maybe go again for Kamala Harris, I mean, I cannot even imagine.
They
But that,
will.
yeah, I mean, but that would show they never learned a thing. Like, it was
Right.
not because she's black. Nobody gives a shit if she's black or white. She is completely stupid. And she has no knowledge for politics, like AOC too. I watched the AOC talk in the Munich Security Conference. People were thinking they talked to a child. She doesn't know anything about the world, anything about like barely nothing about. If you say Ukraine war, she could not explain what's going on there. So, and that's just insane how people like this getting so much political power are getting nominated. And the other thing, what I want to say is, like last week you wrote about it, like, did they ever thought going in the shoes of Trump? When they always say, "Oh, he's a fascist, totally dictator," whatever. That's he wants to do. But think about what they did to Trump. I felt that the whole time, right? So it's like they tried to destroy him, put him in jail, uh, like get all his money and lock him up. That is what they actually tried for real.
Assassinate. They tried to throw him off the
Yeah,
ballot.
exactly, everything. And so, and then they're criticizing him when he says cancel Colbert or cancel Jimmy Kimmel. That's the worst crime
And
they find, after what he went through. And I have to say, if I get pummeled like this, how they pummeled him in the press nonstop worldwide, and now you're in power, I cannot really be mad if that guy now says, I don't want that every nighttime talker has nothing else to do as to trash me every night. All of them, So, and I think Jimmy Kimmel turned unwatchable based on
all
this.
of them. Yeah, they
Yeah,
did.
yeah. I mean, Bill Mayer, I give him credit. He tries a lot to be like this kind of moral, like thing in the middle, so where you don't feel he's totally only, even if he's a Democrat, but he's not like, he points out bullshit to both sides. That I give him really the credit for, But everybody else, if you have Colbert, Seth Meyers, and whatever, Jimmy Fallon, they're all the same. They think Trump should be dead, and that's totally unacceptable.
It's the weirdest thing. And I in 2020, you know, I was a very much like I was Biden's number one girl. I was a Biden girl. I had been a Hillary fanatic. If people knew anything about me, they knew that I supported Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama. I was a true believer if there ever was one. I had zero ability to think critically about them. I thought they were the heroes. I thought, the right was all the bad guys. I went along with all of it. And it was just in a couple of months that things started to really change. It was a little bit before that because I watched how Hollywood lost its mind, how they started calling, movies like La La Land racist and Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri racist. And everything was racist, and they canceled the Golden Globes because they were racist. And the Academy, added all these new members to try to make themselves seem not racist. It was absolute mass hysteria that took hold of Hollywood, like the Salem witch trials is what it reminded me of. And so I was already moving away from them. I was like, I'm not going along with this. But in 2020 was when I started to get to know the Trump side, get to know him, get to know his supporters, and listen to like right-wing radio or whatever. And I was still like getting money from the studios. I was still being invited to screenings. I still had the friendships of a lot of people who work with me, writers who worked on my site. But the minute I started writing on Twitter about using my website's name about right-wing issues like abortion, right?
Yeah.
It was different from what a normal liberal would say. That caught the attention of a reporter at the Hollywood Reporter who wrote like an expose about me. They called me a MAGA darling. Um, and it wasn't until that point that they said that I felt the boot. You're out, right? The cold hand. I hadn't felt it before. Like they were bullying me, they hated me. I wasn't really liked, but I didn't get that cold hand of, pushing you out, slamming the door until they found out that I was going to vote for Donald Trump. And so if I hear that, I think, what side do I want to be on? Do I want to be on the side that says, if you make this choice, you are unpersoned, you're exiled out of our utopia, you're gone. We won't advertise, we won't invite you to our screenings. And that's true. They took me off all the lists of the parties and Telluride Film Festival to go to. I wasn't allowed to go to those anymore.
Wow.
The
Yeah.
publicist turned a cold shoulder on me. Every single writer that worked on my website left, some of them just to protect themselves so that they wouldn't be caught up in it, and some because they were personally offended about what I did. Everybody. I lost jobs. I lost income. And a friend of mine that had been my friend for 15 years, like said, I can't be your friend anymore. And I was like,
Wow.
wow, wow. Really? That's what we. And so when I understand it from that perspective, I can see why people are such cowards, why Martin Scorsese is such a coward. It's all these filmmakers, why they stay silent, why they go along with it, even people who know better, because they're afraid of that, and that for them would be a fate worse than death, you know. But I guess you and I have these kind of weird personalities where we just don't really care that much.
No, and it's like I cannot look myself in the mirror if I sell myself out in a way that I say something totally against my uh, um, belief. That's the thing. And then I get it here in Germany when I said, look, guys, there is only the AfD now to vote for. All the other parties are the same shit, basically. I mean, and then they all lose it. They're like, no, 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 are you crazy? There are Nazis in the AfD. Yeah,
Mm.
100%. But there may be 2% Nazis in the party, what is basically right conservative party, who would be there where Germany was under like Helmut Kohl before Merkel, like the Christian Democrat. He was right wing. Now he would be like, oh, he was a Nazi, but he was
Yeah.
Chancellor for 16 years. So only because you say, okay, how is it maybe that we should not have 20 million migrants from Islamistic countries here? Maybe we should drastically stop this and reduce this. And how is it also that we should, like in general, like for example, right now with the Ukraine war as an example, you can say Germany pays almost everything now because the US, what Trump did, I think he did the right thing. He said, look, we tried it all to settle this. Now it's not on our dime anymore. So what happens is Europe, mostly then Germany, buys the weapons and buys all this stuff. They give it to the Ukraine, and they released 90 billion through the EU, where then Germany is alone 30 billion of it, and uh, that's the reason the Ukraine can also steal so much money all the time. The corruption is on an all-time high. They're getting
Oh,
so
yeah.
much money as they could never, in their own economy, never make that money. So for them, the war is like a very good business for the elite. For the people dying in the front lines, is a total disaster, and that's the situation there. And the amalgamation, like in Europe here, especially in Germany, is okay. So we have the inflation, we have everything gets more expensive. We have 5 million migrants; they're getting everything for free: healthcare, school, housing, money. So and we should pay more taxes every year because of that. And not only because of them, also because of the Ukrainians. And so we give the money to the whole world. And I think that makes now the resentment in the population. That's the reason the AfD is on 30% in the polls, way stronger as any other party, because people are fed up. They said, what are we doing? That's insane. So,
Yeah.
and what I feel that's parallel in the US, the same thing. Where is the reasoning and logical thinking so that you could work even together on subjects and say, look, that's insane. We need to, for example, the borders, like we cannot have just completely open borders and nobody cares. So but that happened under Kamala Harris, right? So that completely, that everybody could get in, and there was no prosecution or any form of control. And think about it, if you fly, even as a tourist, if I fly to New York to shoot my movie, they're all over me like, what are you doing? All this stuff, even if you're there looking like somebody who's not like going here on social welfare. And but everybody else, if you just drive over the border somewhere, welcome.
Yeah.
Here's your paycheck. So I don't get it why we're not getting together and skipping the moral discussions and like this kind, and looking into the facts and thinking about it, what to do. Think about Doge, Elon Musk. I loved that, right? And I'm very sad that it ended so badly.
Before they got to finish it.
Yes, because of course the lobbies were too strong.
Hmm.
The pressure on Trump was too much. They all came, said, if you delete that money, whatever, like it never get voted again. Like all these people from Congress and so on, I think they made Elon Musk leaving. And but
But
that is
they're
what has
still
to happen.
punished. Yeah, they're still punished for it. That
Yes,
they're still holding Trump saying, "Oh, you took away all this money from," like he gets, no credit when he backs off of something. They still blame him for it, no matter what it is. So he's almost better off just continuing to do what he wants to do. But I know he can't because you're right, the pressures is too much. And I think with your movie, I think that's sort of the message of it is if you push people too far
yeah,
and you don't let them talk about things, this is where it's going to go in one way or another. Maybe not to that level because that's sort of, more fantasy, but it definitely is sort of how and honestly, weirdly enough, you can kind of see how at a similar time in Germany in the 1930s, with Weimar Germany being the way it was, right? It was very kind of crazy and
yeah,
immoral or whatever, and with inflation and with chaos around the world, with the Great Depression and stuff happening in the U.S. in the 1930s, you can see how Hitler could have risen that way because he was one guy who said, "Okay, you know, forget it. We're not gonna keep arguing about this. This is what we're gonna do. We're gonna fix Germany, blah blah blah, right?" Unfortunately, he had the other part of it. I'm not saying Hitler was good. Please don't quote me like that. I'm just saying you can understand how, given the time, how a very strident person like that could have risen and been so beloved by people because they just want to be led somewhere. And I think that the left thinks that that's what Trump was, that he was this strong man who was going to come in and to an extent he kind of was. He just sort of said, "This is what we're going to do, and I don't care if you don't like it or not. I'll laugh in your face." He's still like that. But he's obviously not Hitler. He's not throwing people in concentration camps.
absolutely.
You know, he's not sort of demonizing one group, even though they say he is. But so it's not quite to that level, but you can kind of understand it given how we're living, which is this weird contradiction between. I heard that they dropped 3,000 Nigerians into a town in, where was it? It was Ohio,
Yeah.
somewhere, some tiny little town. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And I live in this very small, very liberal town in California. I don't say where I live because I have too many people who hate me, but it's like, yoga, coffee, lawn signs. It's the whole thing. I thought, wouldn't it be great to drop 3,000 Nigerians here? and see how you like it. But in this small town, they're expected to absorb them into the schools, into the healthcare system, and then their culture is completely different. Not that I'm not saying it's bad. It's just it's unfair to expect the citizens of that town to absorb this problem of the world. There's got to be a better way to do it.
Look, when in Berlin, when they put like migrants up, as soon they want to put like this kind of container homes or whatever, like social housing, in a region of Berlin where more the rich left live, the Green Party members and so on, that's directly they refuse this and they move it away. So but they're the
Hmm.
people in the parliament. We have to be more colorful. Perfect migration is great. As soon
Yeah.
they get 500 Afghanistan people living in the neighborhood, they flip it completely out and want to get rid of them. So that's that two-faced kind of live here, how they act, and that's the thing. It's like they cannot like um, it's so absurd in a way because the people like they don't react even after the facts are on the table that they change, then they double down on their righteousness on this crazy like no, take the COVID vaccine. I'm vaccinated. I thought the best thing what can happen is we get a vaccine, it works, we're done, right? So and then it turned out total bullshit. It holds up 3 months. It doesn't really uh, the maximum what it did was maybe that you didn't die from COVID,
Didn't
maybe.
die.
So and it was all in my hometown here. Like Mainz was by a BioNTech, Pfizer. They developed the vaccine right here, and that this guy's made 18 billion bucks and then moved to London, like the owners of BioNTech. So and but now with all the facts, all these people still completely say everybody who didn't believe in the vaccine or whatever was like a conspiracy theorist. But the facts proved them wrong. They were wrong. They were thinking like you should be locked up in a room if you're not vaccinated because of
Oh,
you everybody gets now COVID, everybody dies. So instead of reversing this error, right? The same with the migration in Europe and also in the US, that they say, no, that was a major mistake and that happened. That how could Joe Biden let that so slide? That like, I don't really care, so let Kamala do it. And if she let everybody in, I'm not interfering as the president. So also there, they should say there was a major mistake and Trump corrected it.
yeah. And
So to just meet in the middle here somewhere, that the ICE, that yeah, there was like there were a lot of people maybe hired by ICE, they were not really educated how to police and how to arrest people, and there was violence and there was unnecessary violence 100%. But on the other hand, if you don't do it, then you also will not get the migrants out. If you just
yeah.
say please leave, I say it in TV, just pack your shit and leave. You were very surprised that people not leaving. So you have to go there and have to say, look, you're illegal here. You have to go back if you can apply properly in the country you come from and you maybe get a visa. But otherwise, you're illegal here. It's a crime. So and um, all this stuff, uh, I feel a lot of like in a way like you and me who are a little more like now turned conservative or whatever, that we are not turning right wing, we're turning common sense, or we keep common sense, but the others went off the board, where you feel like, are you fucking kidding me? I mean, what is this? The Somali scam. Like I watched Matt Walsh. I actually like. I think he's funny and he brings good
Yeah, he is
facts,
funny.
right? So, but the real scandal with that Somali stuff is that it looks like it continues. It's this kind of like there is not like this comes out and now it's all over. No, it's like it's right wing propaganda and we should have more Somali daycare centers with no kids in, and the money
No.
is still flowing. I mean, it's
Well,
insane.
why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they take advantage? Like I was thinking of that. Why wouldn't you take advantage of these crazy liberals who will just hand over their money. And if you dare to criticize them, you're called a racist. Like it's the ultimate scam. It's a perfect scam. It's a great way to make a lot of money really fast. I mean, I've been hustled. I don't know, like I've been hustled out of my I was I got a phone call from what I thought was my bank.
Yeah,
And I wrote about this. I don't know if you know it, but I could tell that the guy was black on the phone.
yeah,
And he was saying, "Oh, someone has broken into your account and stole your, your bank details in there,
yeah.
and they're drawing up this charge for $5,000 because I had 5,000 in the bank." And and he said, I'm assuming you didn't make that charge." And I said, "No, no, I didn't." And he's like, "Okay, don't worry, we'll get this fixed right up for you.
That you had to
But
give up
first,
your bank details.
he goes, but first let me text you." He had all mine. He had hacked into my system.
Ah,
He
okay.
had all my
So,
charges. He had my phone number. He said, "First let me text you this code and you confirm it." And once I did that, that's when he was allowed to take my money and the bank would do nothing about it. And the only reason I didn't act more vigilant about it was because I didn't want to be a Karen. I didn't want to be racist. I didn't want to make him feel bad. I didn't want to get him in trouble at his job. That's really what was going on inside my head. I wasn't thinking, wait a second, I need to be, who are you? What's your name? So I lost $5,000. It was a hard lesson to lose. The guy just took my money and left. And I can imagine on a much broader scale how these guys are like, "Are you kidding? You can do anything here. They're not gonna, they're not gonna care. If anything, they're gonna be happy to give you the money. They don't really care." So of course it's a scam. Why wouldn't it be? It's Darwinian. The rats are going to eat the cheese. Like I shouldn't say that. I should cut that out. They're going to say, "Oh, she's comparing immigrants to rats." No, I'm not. I'm saying it's nature. It's just
yeah,
nature. It's survival. It's the bear will eat you on the trail, the grizzly bear. It's just the way it is. Why wouldn't they get the money? But you should talk to Matt Walsh because his movie, What is a Woman, was so
yes,
groundbreaking. And
yes.
they treated him like he was Hitler. Like he was treated so badly for that movie, but he was one of the few people willing to talk about something that nobody was willing to talk about, which is what your movie does. It
Yeah.
talks about things people aren't prepared for. And you should talk to him if you can. You should get
I
over
don't
there.
have the direct contact to him. I think that
I don't
PR.
either. If I did, I'd hand it over. I do
Yeah,
know one guy who writes for them, so I'll forward him your
yeah,
email.
yeah. I
Um,
know he will like the movie because he also has a little more this kind of, in a way, harsher, of course, in a way, satire to it. But uh, I agree with a lot of analytics he's doing. When he's then like when Candace Owens went like completely crazy in a way on some stuff, he called her out with the Charlie Kirk assassination and so on. And I think he completely like dissected the case and and came to the conclusion that not the
yeah.
whatever French aliens. I don't know what the fuck she was talking about, but I mean it's kind of a clear cut, evidential, forensic case,
Yeah.
So, and that's the thing where, yeah, there is a lot of stuff in all the case, even the Trump assassination where he hit him in the ear. Um, that's a case what is a little stranger for me because of they saw him on that roof with the rifle and they were talking to him and then nothing happened. I mean, how is this even possible when you have a guy on a roof with a rifle and you just say, okay, now Trump walks up and makes a speech and I don't do anything, but I'm like the security for Donald Trump? That's strange. I
I
mean,
know.
that's unacceptable also, like that's almost insane, actually. It would be like you have Lee Harvey Oswald hanging out of the window with the rifle for a half an hour before the convoy comes,
That
and,
whole story
and
is weird,
everybody
but
like, look, the guy up there with the rifle. Ah, forget it.
it's weird because when you think about Thomas Matthew Crooks and you think about Tyler Robinson, these guys, they shot from rooftops, which is in of itself a weird thing. And they fit the similar personality type in that they were sort of radicalized right around 2020 during lockdowns and their formative years.
Mhm.
A lot of these young men were. They were locked down and on the internet, and a lot of them were on Discord. And, honestly, I can never prove this, and I wish we had a way to find it out, but I would not be surprised. Back in the 60s, the CIA was trying to get Castro killed. And to do that, they would find these lost men who could be assassins.
Yeah.
It seems to me, I don't buy that Israel would bother, so I don't go down that rabbit hole. But it does seem to me the Democrats or the deep state or whatever you want to call it they've tried everything else to get rid of Trump. Why wouldn't they find these guys on the internet, radicalize them on these sites, and sort of aim them at the target? It seems like a no-brainer to me, considering what the CIA did in the past. I don't think that these guys did this on their own, meaning they came up with it on their own. I think there was some seeds planted. I don't know why. I don't know who. I don't think Israel. I don't have that kind of paranoia, but because it doesn't make sense, right? If they wanted to kill Charlie Kirk, why wouldn't they start with like Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, all these other people who are
Yeah.
really overtly anti-Israel, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah.
But so that doesn't make sense to me. But and also they don't benefit the way that the left would benefit. Just the government wants Trump gone. They've been wanting him gone since the
Bureaucracy, I
beginning.
mean, Washington wants him gone, right? Because he's too,
Washington, everything.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
The powers that be want him, they want him dead.
yeah,
Um, they want Trump and Trumpism dead so that they can take over. And what they want to build is they want to build a 1984 like global country or territory, whatever you want to call it, where they're mostly living online and they don't have borders and countries and states anymore so much as they have countries that are in alignment ideologically, like we have now. We have Germany, the US, the UK, Sweden, all in sort of ideological alignment that, have this woke. And so what do they care if the migrants come over? You know what I mean? Because they're not thinking of the borders. They're not thinking of preserving their culture, their old culture.
yeah.
They're thinking about this new way of seeing the world, which is elevating marginalized groups. I saw a woman on TikTok say, the problem in our country is not transgenderism, it's not critical race theory, it's not immigrants, it's white supremacy. That's what
Oh,
she
God.
says, white supremacy. So like they think white people are the villains, and that's something Matt Walsh talks about a lot,
Yes.
which is that, and white people are not allowed to turn around and have and protect themselves and defend themselves and say white pride or anything like that because that just feeds into the stereotype. This new world view suits the ruling class. It suits the rich because the rich can be absolved in a very easy way simply by elevating marginalized groups. It's the middle class and the poor that are screwed. The people in the middle trying to just live out their lives in America or wherever else who don't have a place in this new utopia. It's all for rich people and for the dependent poor, but mainly people of color and marginalized groups.
Yeah, but the middle class dissolves. And
Yeah.
uh, I will never forget, like, whatever, 30 years ago, I was at a bank in Frankfurt, and there was a guy, Professor Rademacher. He was a mathematic. And I thought he would talk about banking, whatever, but he talked about something completely different that evening. He showed mathematically country after country after country where the middle class dissolved. In the very end, fascism and violence happened. It's like every single time. And I see in Europe with the price explosion, in the US with the inflation going up, um, that's the slow route happening. Where this kind of at one point, then you need, for example, if you have only 10% of the people really rich, but and everybody else is basically poor, violence and crime is going this up. You need then like Bezos has his bodyguards and fortresses and bulletproof cars, right? But a
That's
normal
right.
person from a normal doctor, a normal guy doesn't have that. That's too expensive for them. So they get victims of crimes. Then you go to the subway, you get robbed. 50-50 chance. So all these percentages he showed in his statistics, and the people that were very railed up. They were all like bankers in Frankfurt. They thought they have a nice evening, and he really shocked everybody with his analytics. And I loved that. I went to him after. I said, "You really kicked their ass." They were like totally like not anymore like the canapés eating the champagne drinking, and I think similar crazy thoughts like what you say with in Germany, the Green Party and the Left Party, they always say it's great that all more color comes in, Somalia, Senegal, whatever, more color comes in. But
That's right.
most of these people, as if they would rule, you're dead. Like
That's
that's
right.
the point, right? So
I
all this,
know.
how this LGBTQ free Gaza people, how could they be fans of radical Islam? How is that possible? I mean, that's what I totally don't get in my
Me
brain.
either.
Are they not seeing what they do with women, how they treat women, how they kill gays and whatever? They would be all dead. There would be not one more Christopher Street parade. They would shoot them. And that's the
Yeah,
thing
no
with
such thing
Iran.
as freedom of speech, even. They don't even have that. They can't
No,
even protest. They don't
there's nothing.
realize that.
Yeah. Think about
Mm.
4 years or no, what we have now, 2.5, 3 years, the Gaza thing, where they say the Israelis did a genocide. 45,000 people died in Gaza, right? Or maybe let's say 50,000 died, but that's around the number. But in the same 4 weeks in Iran, they shot these people on the streets. Like almost the same amount of people disappeared and are dead from the Iranians, right? And now we have to hear Trump is the bad guy bombing Iran, or Netanyahu is a fascist. And, like, no, it's like, of course, the Iran would throw a nuclear bomb on Israel without a blink if they would have the chance. They give a fuck, and all this stuff. Like in all that years since I'm a boy, it was always terror attack, terror attack. Israel
Hmm.
strikes back, right? But if there would be not a terror attack, Israel would never did anything. Like they're only reacting to the non-stop trying around them. Everybody wants to kill them and wipe them off the earth. So that's what's happening. And that Israel sometimes reacts way bigger as the initial attack was. Yeah.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, what they want to do, right? So what do you want to do? So you massacre 1,200 people on a rave or festival, and then you're like, uh, let's whatever, throw a bomb on one house. No, this was so big that Israel had to go into Gaza to get the hostages and to get to kill the Hamas, right? So everything else would be absurd if you would not reacted to it,
No,
So yeah,
they can't fight. That's war. Look at Nuremberg and Berlin after World War II.
yeah, they
That's what
were
war looks like.
demolished.
If you're going to
Yeah,
lose a war, if you're going to fight a war, be prepared for this to happen to you, you know?
yes, you know.
Um,
Like
okay, so it looks like we have talked it
we
out.
went to every subject matter, and
We really did. We bounced around, but listen, I really hope people go see Citizen Vigilante,
thank
and I
you.
hope that all the people who read my site watch it if they get a chance. I know they will, and you'll be thrilled, at least even if you might not agree with some of the things that you see in the movie or you feel offended by them or whatever. The filmmaking, the music, the editing, the camera work, the acting, it's just top notch. Hot Fire.
Thank
Very,
you.
very exciting film. And
Yeah,
I can't wait for people to see it. I will I'll
help
report back to
people.
you if I see how they react.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much. We stay in contact,
Okay.
and I will send you with the
The
transfer
link.
the thing. Okay, thanks so much. Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.